Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to friends, colleagues, and connections all around the world. Today we continue with our Global Tech Talks, which are based on discussions with thought leaders and technical experts in the wonderful world of technology, based on a topic du jour. And today I have a great pleasure to talk to Stewart Edmondson of the UKSEF. So maybe, Stewart, you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the UKSEF and its objectives.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Paul. Thank you for inviting me, first of all.
A pleasure.
The UK Electronic Skills Foundation has been around 10 years, and I've been running it for the last 5 years. My background is electronics and engineering, and that's a long time ago. And I joined, as I say, 5 years ago. The objective of the foundation, which is a charity, is to try and encourage more young people to study electronics and work in the sector. It was founded, the concept was originated by the Trade Association, which was then called NMI. 10, 12 years ago, they had the concept of trying to do something to get more young graduates into the sector. We've got other challenges as well associated with raising the profile of electronics and marketing and trying to get career awareness improved and some other services that we offer at companies, for instance, around degree apprenticeships. So that's the foundation. We've been going 10 years. And in that time, we've helped around about 550 students at university connect them with companies. And yeah, that's the organisation.
Okay, thank you, Stewart. That's very interesting. In my new role as running a technical recruitment company, I sometimes wonder if there are more recruiters in the market than actual STEM technical talents. What do you see that's happening in schools, colleges, universities, companies that are trying to address this shortfall?
Yeah, well, as you say, there is and has been a shortfall for some time. Right at the national level, when you look at the Royal Academy of Engineering and Engineering UK, they identify that there is this strategic shortage of engineers. And it's partly because of an ageing profile, an increasing market, a number of different verticals requiring, like automotive, for instance, requiring a different skill set of engineers. What's happening at schools? Actually, some really positive things at schools. So since the science GCSEs were changed back in 2017, there's been a 20% increase in the number of 16-year-olds doing science GCSEs. And if you look at A-levels, then 4 of the 10 most popular A-levels are STEM subjects.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, the number one is maths. Around about 90,000 people do maths. And if you look at something like computing, it used to be ICT, which wasn't a great subject for engineering. It's now computer science, and the curriculum's much richer in terms of engineering content.
Okay.
And really pleasingly, it's the fastest growing A-level with over 11,000 people doing computing.
So this A-level ICT computer science has much more of a focus on writing software and learning software languages rather than using software packages, right?
Absolutely. It's about computer architecture. It's about the fundamentals of truth table, Boolean algebra, architectures of processors, how computer systems fit together, and as you say, the languages as well. So, and there's a big project included in it. So that's great. Okay. One of the challenges associated is, and the government recognises this, is upskilling ICT teachers to teach computing, which they're investing considerably in, which is really focused investment, which is good. But the numbers doing physics and maths are significant, and the numbers doing computing are increasing. I think also there's been a change as well. If you think the Royal Academy of Engineering did some quite radical videos, quite fashionable videos called "This is Engineering," giving slightly unexpected views of engineering. And I know up until last year, they've been viewed 38 million times. 90% of people were 13 to 17, and half of those were female. So it was. I think there's been a push as well by the academy and the institutions, and to a small extent by organisations like us, to reposition engineering as a career associated with innovation, cool things, and making that connection rather than just talking about circuit boards, soldering, and the mechanics of engineering. Trying to talk about the outcomes and trying to point out that modern technology depends upon engineering and largely depends upon electronics and computer science.
Yeah, I would fully agree with you. I think you mentioned female participation and building diverse teams has always been a very strong focus of mine through the years, and not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it actually is beneficial for business in general. And typically from the research, diverse teams and diverse companies are typically 30% more profitable, right? So
absolutely, yeah. The evidence is unequivocal. It's just how to achieve that. Yeah.
So what is happening with female participation in STEM and electronics these days? Is this something that is this finally breaking through? Because there's been a lot of energy put into this.
Yes. It's a generational challenge. I hesitate to use the expression breakthrough, because if you look at, for instance, the number of girls doing A-level physics, or the percentage of girls doing A-level physics, although the numbers are increasing, it's still stubbornly around 21, 22% of the overall people doing A-level physics, which is a challenge. If you look at engineering degrees, and I've done some analysis of UKAS data, there's some really interesting trends. For instance, general engineering is increasingly attractive to girls.
Okay.
Last year, it was 28% of those that started general engineering degrees are female, compared to across the board in all disciplines of engineering, around about 18. And for the subject we're most interested in, electronic and electrical engineering, where it's 16%. Something about general engineering seems to be more attractive to females.
Yeah, and I think maybe a bit like life science degrees, where you have this breadth and then you can find your speciality down the line. But for a lot of engineers, this breadth is also very important. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also trying a message that does resonate with girls is, and a lot of young people, a lot of millennials, is using engineering to make the world a better place, to solve problems at the UN sustainability goal level. If you look at and I think there's 16 or 17 of the goals, you can drill down all of them to come to technology is the key to making those things better, and particularly biomedical and to do with the environment, decarbonisation. Those are themes, outcomes that resonate with young people, particularly females. And if we can make the connection to, in order to do that, you could benefit from studying engineering, and particularly electronic engineering. Then we're on a trajectory and an approach that's going to be beneficial.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a case of selling the end game rather than the subject or the topic. Yeah, I think it's important to the bigger picture. Yeah,
absolutely. Focus on the outcome, and I think you use the word selling there, and I think you're absolutely right. And one of the shortfalls of us as an industry is we generally don't, until recently, with the This Is Engineering campaign and other messages, have sold our profession and what we do in a way that gets brought home to young people. And part of engineering is a mystery. I'm talking to you on a laptop, I've got my phone by the side of me. All the technology is hidden away, so people see the product, or they use a service, or they use a technology without seeing it. So we need to demystify what the product and the electronics is, and also the whole process of engineering design and development. People are abstracted away from, and unless we show people the process, and also you talked about diverse teams. I think that's a really great point, that we show young people, the people who are like them, who are involved in our activity, that then there's more work to do in that respect.
Yeah, that's good. So if there was maybe one thing you would change about the way, let's say, either British society or the whole journey from school to first position in an electronics company, what would you select as the primary?
Yeah. But I don't think there's a panacea. It's distilling it down to one thing is really tricky. But as a theme, I would want to see young people delaying their decisions to as late as possible. I think a characteristic of our education system is it forces young people to choose subjects and therefore careers too young an age. So they select their GCSEs when they're 14. They select 3 A levels in England, and when they're 16 to 17, 18, they're expected to choose a specific degree whilst they're still at school when they're 17. Yeah. I think trying to, if I could wave a magic wand, it would push all those decisions back, have a broader curriculum that enable people to choose later when they've got more information. I think that general engineering, I think those universities that offer a general first year course is really attractive, because you might not have studied electronics so much at school, you might not be aware, but once you get to university and you can see more, then there is quite a bit of anecdotal evidence that the numbers that then stream towards electronics is significant. And I think, so that's what I would say, push back and making choices until later in people's young lives.
Yeah, and I think this is maybe some of the approach they take in Germany, as far as I understand. Yeah,
right.
As a typical German student doesn't leave university with he or she's first degree until they're about 25 or 26.
Right.
Whereas I was already a 5-year veteran on my second company. Yeah.
Yes.
Leading teams developing semiconductor products. Yeah. So it's sometimes I used to meet German guys. We have German students who are coming in ultimately older than I was, and I was literally up to my eyeballs in technology and responsibilities. So
yeah, I think that's another good point about being an engineer. I think there's 3 strands to being an engineer. Education, the theoretical understanding and knowledge is really important. Training, and also putting it into practice, as in work experience. And I see as almost like a helix that you've got to. The other thing that I would advocate is, work placements, work experience, internships, as you say, to get that practical experience, because engineering is a vocation. It's a practical subject. Linking theory with practicality. So those 3 strands of education, training, and practice need to go hand in hand. And I think you can get the way the curriculum forces young people to be academic, focused on exam results, focused on theory, with less opportunity, for instance, because of the way electronics is, to get hands-on experience at a young age. And then at university, some universities are very good, and some courses are focused on project work and practical work, which is great, and then lacking experience. But the point is, when you get to, say, that 25-year-old, you need to have training, practical experience, and the theoretical understanding. If you've only got one of them, or they're mismatched, then you can't be an effective engineer.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's trying to get that broad base. When I think back to my first career opportunity, I was actually put in different divisions, different departments for months on end. Yeah, I wanted to be a designer, and I kept pushing me into production, into test, into product engineering, which I guess I wasn't particularly happy about at the time. But down the line, I really saw a really strong advantage, because these days people tend to be siloed. Pretty quickly, even in companies. They don't understand. People can work in a virtual world without even knowing anything about test or manufacture or product development, and I think they miss a huge amount of wider knowledge, which helps them in their primary role.
Absolutely. It's having that general base of experience all the way through the product life cycle, and the broader organizational context as well. Engineering doesn't happen in a vacuum. All the way through to marketing and the product, and dealing with the wider aspects. I think that's really important. I always come back to the UK spec, the competencies, 16 competencies for engineering, as well as the technical ones. There's the people aspect, and then there's things like behaving ethically, continuing development, and those are really important as well. And I think all of those need to be addressed to create a professional engineer.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's a great statement, Stewart, in terms of the breadth of need. It's not just the technical requirements. In the same way, I guess when I'm recruiting, I'm also looking for soft skills, communication, persuasion, reaction to challenges, etc. And this is ultimately a sign of a well-rounded individual. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, how are those soft skills developed? I think it's incumbent on us as people in the industry and also universities and organisations to contribute together to help develop those. It can be too narrowly focused. I guess this comes back to making sure that people are general and well-rounded and given the opportunities. I think opportunities is really important to ensure that companies. There's often a delta between the output of universities and the expectation of company for a new graduate. And some of that is natural because universities aren't training establishments. They are to provide that knowledge and understanding, that broader education. But equally, the gap shouldn't be too broad. And I think universities or industry working closer with universities to influence curriculum, to provide projects, to be part of industrial advisory boards and providing opportunities for placements for students are all things that companies can do to help develop young engineers.
Yeah, those are good points, Stewart. And I'd like to ask you one final question today, which I ask all my guests.
Okay.
Tell me something interesting about yourself that maybe would surprise me and the audience.
Okay, sure. In my younger days, I was a keen mountaineer. My wife and I did a lot of fell walking, climbing in this country, and also trekking more broadly, Himalayas, Africa and South America. Okay. But we spent a lot of time in the Alps. And 21 years ago, this year, we climbed the Matterhorn together.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which was the pinnacle, pardon the pun, of our mountaineering career, and it was an amazing day.
I've seen it many years ago, and it's literally like a needle sticking out of the ground, right?
It's an iconic mountain, and it was a perfect alpine day. We started in darkness and climbed, lots of snow, ice, rock, climbed, got to the top, and it took us a long time to come down. And that was a memorable, really memorable achievement, and it was great to do it with my wife. We did it together. So that's the interesting thing about it.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that with us, Stewart. It was much unexpected, so I achieved that objective. So today I just wanted to thank you for joining me.
My pleasure, Paul.
It's been a real pleasure to talk to you again. And of course, if anyone is watching this video and needs young talents or students or placement students, then please contact Stewart at the UKSEF. You'll find them, type UKSEF into Google and all will be revealed. Or you can contact Stewart on LinkedIn. I'm sure he will respond.
Yeah, delighted to.
Quickly. So thanks again, Stewart, and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Lovely to talk to you.
Bye-bye.